All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Holy cow, it's the 22nd of March, Andrew.
Yes, it is. There's some sports stuff going on. All you nerds that watch basketball, that's all well and good.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to watch some real sports, though, the semifinals for the NCAA wrestling is tonight. This is Friday the 22nd at 5 p.m. here in Mountain Time, 6 p.m. for you Lake peeps. And the finals are tomorrow.
Okay.
So Colorado pretty well represented. So there is a wrestler named Vance Bonbauer that made the quarterfinals and lost, but he was like a 28 seed that made the quarters. And he's still trying to fight back through. And we got three in the semifinals tonight. So already three All-Americans from the state of Colorado for sure.
Well, that's great.
So feeling really good about that.
That's great.
Yeah, and of course UNC and Air Force are doing well, and Missouri has got some studs. Missouri's got two guys in
Yeah.
the semifinals tonight. One guy will be going for his third consecutive national title tomorrow. It's assuming he wins tonight, which is not gospel yet. But
Holy cow.
yeah,
No, that's
the Tigers
amazing.
can wrestle, man. They're a tough program.
Yeah.
They're,
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've had an interesting 7 days.
yeah, I went shopping today. That was nice. It's been sunny, weather shifting, and that's right. Pretty standard issue. Colorado weather stuff, right?
I know.
No, obviously, guys, we were talking to here, the third week of March. There was a pretty major announcement. We talked about the NAR lawsuit that was came to somewhat a resolution in November with
Yeah.
NAR losing the case. And now it appears that a settlement has been proposed between NAR, the trade organization that are both Michael and myself and several other people are in, I guess coworkers around the world are
Yeah.
members of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the money settled. There's also going to be some few policy changes that have been proposed. I have no idea. I don't pretend to be a lawyer, so my understanding is it's probably likely to get accepted without
Yeah.
much shifting. But who knows? So some of the proposed changes would include, a few different things. And fortunately, here in Colorado, we are in line with basically all of them already. And there's going to be some maybe calling quality of life adjustments we're all going to have to make, though.
Yeah.
So buyer's agency agreement, you've heard Michael and I talk about this. Michael uses it in his secondary market there in Missouri, where it's not yet required. And here in Colorado, we've had that document for 20 years. It's really great. It really informs our buyers about what's going on. Conversely, the seller's agreement really tells sellers, hey, here's how much the commission is getting. And that document has improved. And in recent years, it's shifted now to where it's declared at the point of execution
Yeah.
of this X percentage that is being paid to the listing brokerage firm. Y percentage of that is going to be paid to a cooperative agent. Right? That's how it goes today. So now all 50 or all realtors, I should say, are going to have to use a document that is similar. NAR has not, to my knowledge, provided an example of that document yet. And there are currently 18 states that already have their own document.
Right.
So that's new. And the other big change here is, while commissions have always been negotiable,
Yep.
we have had the opportunity to essentially advertise or market what a proposed commission from these for the buyer's agent would be, right?
Right.
And you've seen them range all over, true, I would say the lion's share of the time they have fell in between that 2.5 and 3% range. Though I've seen them be $0, I've seen them be 1%, I've seen them be 4%, right? So
Right.
there is quite a swing there.
Yeah.
But now that ability to market that will be going away, right?
Right.
Yeah, those are the big changes. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure there's other stuff. It's like a 117-page document, guys.
Yeah.
So we're trying to kind of give you bullet form format
Yeah.
here and give you the update on what most directly impacts us as boots in the ground,
Yeah.
trying to help our
Yeah.
clients day to day.
You're exactly right. I think let's just take it one little step back. So, this whole process started with 5 homeowners, 5, right, in 2019. Then it became class certified in 22, right? So, and here we are in Missouri today. I'm in Missouri today, and you're obviously in Colorado. As you eloquently said, on October 31st, a decision was made against a number of brokerages and companies and realtors against the National Association of Realtors that we call NAR, NAR, whatever you want to say. And part of that that you were just alluding to was that there was a forced compensation, if you will, right? So, for example,
was what was purported by the prosecution.
Advertised, right?
Right.
But,
that was,
but that's through, so through, you've got MLSs that are owned by the National Association of Realtors, and you have independent. We happen to be, ironically, coincidentally, we have both, right? We have independently owned MLSs in Colorado, and then down here we have a NAR owned, right? So we're seeing both sides of this, right? And there's always been a little bit of a misconception of cooperation equaling compensation, right? So part of the MLS is that you agree to cooperate, right, with another agent, another buyer, et cetera, right? And part of that over time became a mandate, I guess if that's the right word, of requiring compensation within the MLS.
right.
Okay. As you said, that could be zero, that could be whatever.
Exactly.
Right?
A figure had to be in a box.
Right.
It could have been zero, it could have been a million, whatever. I guess.
Right. And even though we believe we're full-time professional realtors, we understand and we coach our agents, and our agents coach our clients. And commissions are always negotiable. Where you begin is not where you finish. A lot of those type of things, right? All that being said, the claim was that these sellers didn't know that, right? Which the merits are the merits. It is what it is. We are now here, right? So a lot of questions, I think, need to be answered, right, on how we're going to deal with a lot of things, right? And I think there's maybe more of an irritation that the national media has picked it up and has almost reframed what's going on. Like realtors are out of work. Every realtor is out of a job. Revenue's been cut in half. I mean, all these comments that we're seeing out there, right? A seller can still offer compensation. There's no problem with that. He or she can offer that on their property, right?
Correct.
The couple differences are that, and we have, Andrew's correct, in Colorado and Missouri, we have always had some form of a buyer agency relationship agreement, which explains that. It explains, if compensation could be offered. If not, how we're getting compensated, right? So if there's no compensation, are you, willing to pay me, things like that? Or do we wrap it into the transaction? All kinds of scenarios, right? So now you've got a couple things at play. You've got one, the offer of compensation will be removed from every MLS nationwide sometime mid-year. However,
that's owned by a realtor group, right? So
that's the way it is today, right? So, and I don't know what percentage those are, but it's a big number, right?
It's healthy
of MLSs. Okay. So number one, what does that mean, right? Then the other piece of it is having the document up front prior to showing property.
Correct.
Okay. And what really establishes, if you go back to your real estate school, right? I had to do this the other day. What really starts to establish any type of client relationship is when your opinion gets asked, on what's your opinion on this, or how does this look against A, B? Mm-hmm. Now you're in a relationship, very similar to if it was an attorney, or very similar to your CPA, right? Those type of things, right? So that there's a clear difference, right, between a agency client relationship versus customer relationship, right, et cetera, et cetera. And though I am fairly confident in our teams in Colorado and Missouri that we handle this pretty well, clearly, as a nation, clearly the jury felt that we have not, right? And nor has now the Department of Justice, whereas a lot of these settlements are starting to come out. And again, they're proposed settlements, because there's a lot of questions in there. And also, by the way, if you're watching or listening to this, if you like some of the content and whatnot, Andrew and I do this regularly. A lot of times we have guests, maybe lending, title, or agents. We love to get all their perspective. Please like or subscribe. That really helps us out. Also, if you're in a brokerage and maybe you don't know or you're having trouble getting questions answered, feel free to reach out to us. We'll answer what we can, or we'll direct you on some resources of that might be able to answer a few of your questions. But what we can say, what we're doing is we are moving forward as if today that it's been rubber stamped and it's now July 1st. We're just moving forward now, right? And we're preparing. I mean, we need to prepare ourselves. We need to prepare our internal documents. We need to prepare our agents for that and make sure that they're trained to protect our buyers and our sellers, right? Our clients, right? But also, Andrew, I think you made a really good point. NAR being a trade association is not the state real estate commission in any way, shape, or form, right? So, NAR could make this has to happen. Well, what if it takes 6 months for the state to make it happen, or a year? What do you do, right? There's a lot of these questions that we got to work through. And then there's a lot of things just today that we already know need to be addressed, and here's two of them. One of them is our VA buyers, right? They're prohibited today of paying compensation. How are we going to handle that, right? Right. There's also a standard within the standards of practice of the Code of Ethics, Section 16, which strictly prohibits us from doing exactly what we're being told we have to do. So that whole code, my understanding is, I read today, is going to have to be completely rewritten, right? Because it's now, as of last Friday, it's now no longer valid. So what we've been trained for over years and decades, now we got to be like, okay, well, yesterday we couldn't do it, now we can't. So there's a lot that needs to be flushed out. So that's kind of what got us to today.
Yeah, and I think that there's and again, there's just so many moving parts to this, and I feel like one of the, again, I don't know everything, but I think one of the biggest core sources of frustration that is being felt probably primarily by people in the industry, by realtors and people who are in tangential industries, but also I think what is going into, in the long run, how downstream effects with all of the public, is that both NAR as an organization is making sweeping declarations to apply to an entire country.
Right.
And
right.
What's primarily being out there, the public, and by extension, certain media, most media organizations are like trying to digest that and report on it, but are not able to negotiate the reporting and the declarative statements that NAR is making with the different ways we handle business, both legally and traditionally, in micro markets, right? So, as a for instance, again, and I'm very, very proud to be a Colorado realtor, so I will say this, but if the entire country did business the way we did it here in Colorado, I do not think that we would be in this identical situation, right? Would people still have complaints? Would realtors still behave poorly? Would some lawsuits still happen? Of course, right? But largely, we already have things in place that are taking care of most of the requests, right? So that's a good thing, okay? Now, do we as realtors here in Colorado have to adjust and say like, hey, now I need to start front loading this conversation, right? And what does that look like? Because I mean, again, and you're right, in real estate school, I was there too, and you are trained to, get the document, to provide them with a definition of working relationships as early as you possibly can, like upon a first meeting. And that is a form that isn't used as much these days because they've incorporated a lot of that material into the exclusive rights to buy and sell. But essentially defines what a transaction broker, buyers and sellers agent is, and also what a customer is, right? And kind of the different levels of duties that are owed to both the client and also to the broker, and what that means, right? So that used to be kind of provided, and then we would always get 100% of the time get a buyer's and or seller's agency agreement in place, but oftentimes it would come later, right? So you might show someone a few properties,
Right.
you know, maybe take them out one Saturday or something like that, and then have that conversation, right?
Right.
The idea being, hey, we're trying to forge a relationship here. We're not really, you know, we tend to not do business in as transactional of a way as maybe a more traditional salesperson did. If you like
Right.
walked into a car lot or into an electronics store or something like that, where like
Mhm.
it's a very transactional nature. We're going to be working with these people for somewhere between like, you know, I don't know, 6 weeks to several years, depending on what the nature of a relationship is, right? So
Mhm.
we tend to let that grow a little bit, right? And
Right.
so having that, you know, why having that buyer's agency agreement in place and always happened for sure prior to getting, you know, at least in our team, prior to going under contracts, we were articulating what the compensation model looked like and who was responsible and all that good stuff. But now they want it to happen earlier, which I do understand, right?
Right.
Because you know, not every agent may have been having the compensation conversation at an appropriate time, right? Because if I
Right.
show you 10 houses and you know you're the one that you want to write an offer on is offering a compensation that is less than I am comfortable working for as a buyer's agent, I probably am having that conversation too late now, right?
Right.
I probably have either one of us, either myself or my client, probably is going to feel like they weren't going into that situation with as clear eyes as they could have gone.
Right.
So
Right.
it's again, I think we will adjust, and I agree with you. I find it to be a little unwieldy, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get used to having a conversation with someone saying like, hey,
Yeah.
before I can show you property, we need to talk about this. We need to establish what our relationship looks like, right? So does that mean that, you know, can I take customers out and show them property and then establish an agency relationship later on, right? Do we do a couple like, you know, hey, if we're going out on a Saturday and a Sunday or just a Saturday, do I have like a 1 or 2 day agency relationship and fill the holdover period, people out there? Because I know that's your
Right.
next question.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, and then we see kind of how it goes, right? And then if we end up having it ends up being a good fit, maybe we do have a longer term, you know,
Right.
more more, I guess, away from the past 90 to 180 day, you know, buyers or sellers agency agreement or whatever,
Yeah.
right? It's primarily going to be buyers, right? Because
Yeah.
that this is going to affect more often, right? Because you're darn sure better have your agency agreement in place if you're listing someone's property, dude. Like I don't know if this is news to you on that end, man. This
Right.
go
Right.
back in time and pay attention to what's been going on for the last several months, right?
Right.
But for buyers, it's going to shift, right? So I think we have
Uh-huh.
to get used to having that conversation. And you know, and I've talked to I don't know about I'm sure you probably had a similar experience, Michael, but man, this all kind of came up front like Thursday, Friday of last week, and on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, dude, I'm getting calls from
Yeah.
past clients, from
Yeah.
co-op brokers,
Yeah.
from buddies of mine that are licensed in Texas and New York
Yeah.
and Nevada, and people are gotten to real estate school and they're thinking they, you know, set their life on fire because things are shifting. It's like, well, let's take a breath, guys. Let's have a conversation, right? The job doesn't change too much. All we have to do is adjust to a new rule set, right?
Right.
And figure out how to be successful and provide our clients with good information.
Right.
And I do think, honestly, a lot of good can come out of this, right?
Yeah.
Because if we're being honest with ourselves, and I've talked to a lot of college realtors about this, right? We're being honest with ourselves. The thing we have always done is competition's always been negotiable. I do really feel that most agents that I've talked to in Colorado, outside of Colorado, have always agreed that, hey, you know what I get paid most of the time isn't necessarily what I know I'm going to get paid every single time, right?
Right.
And most businesses work out this way. You kind of, your commissions are generally relatively aligned from a percentage basis from one product to another or whatever, right?
Right. Right.
But it's always been negotiable, right? So I mean, most of us have closed a deal with a new build, and they don't always pay us 2.8% or 3% or 2%. I've seen it be 1%. I've seen it be 2.8. I've seen it be 3. I've seen it be 4. I've seen it, it back, it wasn't too long ago. I'm old enough to remember when Trey Laura started doing $1,500 flat fees, right?
Yep.
The world kept spinning, man. So
Right.
we had conversations with our clients. We either accepted the offered commission or we attempted to negotiate to whatever level we agreed to and we adjusted, right?
Right.
It's going to be similar to that in my experience, right?
Right.
Or in what I think is going to happen. Will there be some adjustment, and does adjustment have pain sometimes? Sure.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I do think the public's going to be more informed. And the thing I was going to say that I think that what we need to be honest with ourselves about is while I think commission's always been negotiable, how many of us have ever looked at anything other than a success fee for our clientele? right? And again, I get it, right? And because it has a very, very practical purposes. Our clients, don't have to pay anything up front. Our clients don't have to, generally if they are buyers, the compensation is kind of folded into the price of the home, like it is with, again, most products out there. Like if you buy, this can of soda, I paid probably several people a commission out of the money I paid for it. I just didn't get it like subdivided on my
Right.
receipt,
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, it was just different. Right now, was that number too high? I don't know, man. Like, like that's always been negotiable. Depends on what you negotiated for, whether you felt it was too high, too low, or just right. But it's always been negotiable. It's always been there. And it did bear a lot of risk for us as realtors, right? Because we've all had those buyers and those sellers that, despite our best efforts, despite, all the circumstances that we're attempting to control, a deal just didn't happen, right?
Right. Right.
And there was no way for anyone to be compensated in that scenario, right? The buyer didn't get to buy a home, the seller didn't get to sell a home, and the agent involved, neither side of that transaction, did not receive a check, right? So that bears a lot of risk for everybody, right? Now, is there a circumstance now in Colorado right now, if you look at your agency deal, you can pay an hourly rate, right? Is there a circumstance where, you get paid, I don't know, figure out your value, pick a number. Let's just make the math easy. Let's say $50 an hour. Let's make the math easy. That's probably low, but whatever, right? So if you go show 5 properties, you make, I don't know, $250 somewhere out for a weekend. Then if you go home, you start writing contracts, great. And you figure out how you turn the clock on, turn the clock off. That's a whole other conversation, right? At the end of the day, do you make a little bit less? Do you make a little bit more? Probably depends on the flow of the transaction, there's retainers where like you might get like a minimum. Maybe your success fee is smaller. Maybe it's 2%, right? But you get a retainer of $2,000. So if that doesn't come to fruition, maybe in that case, that way your buyer still feels like you're incentivized to work very hard for them. But maybe you get something if it doesn't work out, right? So there's all sorts of circumstances where we should have been having these conversations. Not to say that I know that we weren't, but the lion's share, in my experience, not just my own, but in every realtor I've talked with, deals have been success fee oriented, right? So do we start seeing some of these other models that have been around? We don't have to reinvent the wheel, guys. They exist. They're being used. Do we start using them a little more often in the residential space that maybe they were more often used in the commercial space, as a for instance, right? So I mean, there's, I think that we will adjust. I think people will adjust, and I think I would be extremely surprised if there were no realtors out in the world today, man. There's still cobblers, man. I think it will still be realtors out in the world today.
Oh yeah.
So,
and part of this, too, is this is going to open the door for a lot of potentially new business models for each of us and our brokerage, right? So if we wanted to have we have a 3-tier plan A, plan B, plan C. What do you want to do? What does that look like? Too. The other thing, Andrew, is that commercial's been operating this way for decades, right? They wrap it in. I mean, it's expected on commercial that you're going to pay your agent. You don't ask the seller or the other side to pay that, right? But that's also been handled that way as part of a more customary in the trade, right? But I could see a scenario too where, is there specifically a limited agreement, right? Where, 2 friends are going to buy the house and they want you to write it up and it's a 15 minutes worth of work and you get paid X, right? Well, I don't got to show it. I don't got to drive them around. I don't got no inspections, no appraisals. I'm not doing anything. I just wrote it up, The other piece is that, as at least in Colorado and Missouri, outside of the actual getting under contract, whether there's counters or whatever, right? Outside of that, a lot of the duties don't require to have a real estate license. So that's why we have transaction coordinators. Some are licensed, some are unlicensed, right? Ours happens to be unlicensed, right? There's activities that they are allowed to do. The state says they can, right? But then there's things where we have to step in, right? Like they can't go to closing, they can't actually write it up and deliver it. And we have to have anything with money and terms. We got to deal with all that, right? So, I could see transaction services, which would be extremely limited. Hey, I'm not going to schedule the inspection. We're done with the appraisal. You got to do it on your own, right? I could see that being an environment out there, right? and I could see some people, depending upon experience, and depending upon knowledge base, that would gravitate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
But
both
right,
buyers or both clients and agents are going to have more options now,
yeah.
right?
And think
Because
about
it's weird,
this.
'cause, I mean, we have a lot of people who are licensed transaction coordinators in
Yeah,
right that just I mean they're very passionate about real estate. They love helping people, but they
but they don't want
don't.
to sell real estate.
Yeah, they just don't love the process because it's very different, you know.
Right, right.
Um, and again, and there's and I think a lot of the frustration comes from because it is a little scary, man, when you start seeing something that you're so used to seeing will function one way that's going to have to change very clearly,
Right,
right? But
right,
it doesn't mean it's going away. It doesn't mean it's bad. It means that you
right.
need to grow and adjust. I mean, think about, I mean, dude, the rules for sports change every single year. And like,
Mm,
the the designated hitter, to my knowledge, the Rockies are still gonna start playing baseball here in a few weeks, right? The pitch clock, the 3-point line, I mean, all these things were like revolutionary that changed sports that thought was gonna make the game different. And it did make it different, but it's still there and there's still people involved and it's still
right.
successful. And again, will some more clients go out there and try to buy or sell property on their own? Maybe, maybe to probably, I don't know.
They
I
can
still,
today, and they very little do.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They can't, and again, because it's tough, man. Like it's something that most people who aren't doing this job every day,
Right,
it's a scary process, right?
right.
Because it's unfamiliar, right? Like most people probably do what 2 to 5 transactions in a lifetime,
Yeah,
right in that ballpark, right?
yeah.
I mean, most agents in our team are gonna do 10 or 15 a year,
Right,
ish, right? Most people like don't have, and then it also changes all the time, right? So those 2 to 5 they're doing aren't gonna happen back to back to back to back to back. They're gonna
right.
happen every 6 to 10 years, right? So I mean,
They're not
shoot,
in the business all every day like we are.
yeah, and every
Right,
year those contracts change, and every year I mean, look at this, man. Like if your last deal was a year ago and your next deal is next year, it's gonna be a very, very different experience, right?
right, right,
So they're not obviously every trend changes in as seismic as the ones we're discussing today, but there's a reason why, you might pay a professional to help you resolve something.
right.
Right now, but also, I mean, if you are kind of buying your neighbor's house, man, and you guys know each other, you feel competent enough to hire a lawyer or maybe pay an agent on a limited basis to fill out the paperwork so it's done
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
Maybe it is a smart way for you to save a little money and to kind of get things done. Not
Right,
every I think you need to be open now as agents to offering a differential level or a different experience to different people depending on what they want, right? And I think you
right,
have to be open to the fact that not every single transaction needs to have a full service realtor,
right.
right? Um, and that is okay, man. About 10% of them don't today, you know, like that
Yeah.
is like you need
Well,
to be able to do what you're comfortable doing and provide the service you're comfortable providing and demand what you feel like your value is. That's the job today, and that's gonna be the job tomorrow, and that's gonna be the job on August 1st. That is
I
not.
think, yeah, you're right. I think we're going to get to the same place. I think we're just going to go around it in a whole different way to get to the
Yeah,
same place, right? Just like running the bases, right?
yeah,
We're going to get to the same place. It's a matter of how we get there. But I was thinking about this as you're talking, even us in our own brokerage, we just have spent so much time, energy, and money on the sign and the photography and with a
mhm,
phone number and a QR code and the marketing and the this and the that. How much time do you really spend on the buy side, right? Other than we're training our agents, right? So
mhm,
now it's almost like you're going to have a buyer's presentation, right? About these are all the things, the 9 pages of all the things that we do, right? And most of that happens contract to close,
yeah,
right? You're not paying me to go drive around and open a door for you. You're paying contract to close, right? And I think that people don't understand that. So I think that we're going to get what we're planning to do is get very clear on number one, those duties, right? That we have that the state
mhm,
requires us to do. But number two is all the things that we do. And even post closing, right? So like an annual property review, right? Those are things of service that we're going to
mhm.
provide our clients versus, hey, we're closed on it. Great. Thanks. I'm going to give you a bottle of champagne. I'll never talk to you again. I
Right,
mean,
right,
that's just
right.
not how we do business, right? But a
Well, yeah,
lot of
there's
people
no
do.
accounting for people who do job poorly, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't You
You
can't
can't.
approach it from that mindset, right? Like
Right.
if what you're taking out of this is that, oh, someone somewhere did the job bad and did a bad thing, and now I am suffering the consequences. That is a mindset. Like you just can't operate that way, man. You're going to be out of
Correct.
the business in a year,
Right.
and I don't care what the rules are. That's just not how you succeed, right?
Right. Right.
What you say is good. Now I get an opportunity to clearly state my value to my clientele and offer them a much more, a much broader options of services. And
Yeah.
I get to experience the real estate transaction in a whole totally different way because
Right.
maybe you find out you love operating in like a somewhat new modality of doing the job, right?
Yeah.
You found an audience and you like doing this, man. Maybe you don't like the traditional going out every weekend, showing 5 or 6 properties at a time, writing offers and seeing in negotiating and working the process. Maybe you like doing things a little differently, right? If you have to be open to
Yeah.
adjusting your work style to meet your clients where they're at and
Right.
find a clientele base for yourself, right? Create
Right.
it for yourself. This
Right.
is an excellent opportunity for, I mean, honestly, I think one of the biggest, I think I'm just gonna say it, this is the internet, you can swear. One of the biggest bullshit stories I've seen out there is that, oh, the realtors, eh, half the realtors are gonna be gone, only the top dogs are gonna be successful now. It's like, no, like the top dogs are great. They're smart people, they're good at the job, they have a system down, but the system applies to the rule set today, right? That system applies to a traditional way of doing business that's been going on for the last 30 years or so, right?
Right.
And will they be able to leverage that success and success in the future? I sure hope so. I really
Right.
do. I don't want to see good realtors go, lose a job because if you're that successful, you're doing a lot of transactions, you're probably pretty good.
Right.
Like I like working with good realtors.
Yeah, I
But
do too.
this is an excellent opportunity for someone who maybe is in the business that's making a great effort, that is honest and trying to take care of their clients, and just hasn't found their footing in the flow of business today to
Mhm.
carve a new niche for yourself, right?
Mhm.
It was always there, especially in states like Colorado and Washington that
Yeah.
have a buyer's agency agreement and seller's agency agreement. These
Yeah.
tools were kind of there, but now they've been unearthed and the dust's been scraped off of them and they're in front of the public eye. So now
Right.
not only are you looking for an audience, but your clients are out there looking for you. You have a golden opportunity to deliver your product to the audience, to,
Right.
to the public, and to your clients out there in a way that's going to be way easier for them to connect now, right? Because they may not have been looking for you because they didn't know you were there. They were looking
Right.
for the guy who's running bench ads and that's on the radio and that's whatever the case is that's
They
on
just
like
didn't know.
kiosk in the mall, man.
Right.
Maybe that's not how you do it.
Right.
There. I mean, you could function as, what if you were an agent that's like, hey, I get a buyer's agency agreement early. I go out there and I help people that are buying from out of state move to Lake of the Ozarks. Happens all the time in your business, right? So maybe you're gonna figure out a way to market to out of state people. You're like,
Right.
hey, I'm gonna video tour up to 5 homes for you for this level of service. And I'll write the contract up. I'll manage a contract to close. You never even have to come. I'll arrange a mobile notary to wherever you are, dude. We're done. That's something that most agents, I bet, in your market have the ability to do, right?
Yep.
And there's probably a hell of a market for it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But how many are actually functioning that way? Or how many are saying like, oh man, when you can make it out here to the lake next year, we'll see what's available.
Yeah.
Why? I
Yeah.
mean, and I get that's kind of how we do business, and we're in our heads, every buyer wants to put boots in the ground and be in a home to buy it. But I bet you that's not true for everybody,
Right.
right? And if
Right.
if for 1% of the transactions that get done, that wasn't true, and you can capture that 1%, dude, you're an all-star overnight,
Right.
right? So realtors out there, don't panic, dude. The ground's shifting. We got stone feet. We're gonna make
Right.
it work. We're going to adjust. We're gonna
Right.
collaborate. We're gonna find interesting ways to move through this
Right.
process. And at the end of the day, guys, I know we've said this once, we said it 1,000 times. A conversation cures a lot of this, right?
Yep.
So these
Yep.
so if I'm having a conversation with my clients up front, executing my buyer's agency agreement, says like, hey, here's here's some different ways I like to do business, right? And
Right.
here's the different cost, profiles for those different ways. Let's talk about it. What are you comfortable with? What sounds good? What doesn't sound good? And then will you
Right.
have maybe a customized portfolio for every individual client? Maybe, you know.
Right.
And then if you do agree to a success fee of some sort, a given percentage, then you have to call the agent and say like, hey man, is your client, willing to pay a success fee in the form of a seller concession or what
Right.
have You can
Right.
now again the rule I want to be very clear here does not state that a seller cannot pay a success fee to a buyer's agent or a buyer's agent's firm. It absolutely does not say that.
Right.
It says that it
They
cannot
absolutely can do that.
MLS.
Right.
So I mean, the most boring result of all this is that nothing functionally changes, and we just call and say, hey, whatever
Right.
X%, and they say, yeah, that works, and then we write it up that way and send it to each other, and it's boring. Right? So
Right.
I really
Right.
hope the result of this is more options for everybody in a diverse menu of services that the public can react to and that we as agents can offer. And I think at the end of the day, there's room for a lot more people at the top. And there's room for a lot more clients to be able to connect with someone that's going to do business their way instead of just whatever, ABC large nationwide brokerage firm is going to work with, right? And my vision for this is we get more firms like ours, Michael, where we are focused on doing the best business possible in Colorado and in Missouri right now, and identifying the most advantageous way to help out our clients, buyers and sellers in those markets, because it's a different skill set, man. Like even our two markets have their similarities, they have their differences,
Right. Absolutely.
And we cannot function the same way in those two markets, right? So I'm really looking forward to more opportunities like that because it's going to be a better experience for the buyer, man.
Right.
And if you think about most people who offer like a salesman kind of commission-based service, like, yeah, is there like whatever? I'm going to use car sales because it's just easy to articulate.
They're easy to pick on.
I understand there's like gun shyness out there for car salesmen, but let's just walk through it, right?
Yeah.
So while you might be able to buy a Ford in every single state in the union, right? The Ford dealership you walk into in Denver, Colorado is going to do things a little differently. Right. Now, is there still, whatever CarMax out there that's going to have largely the same rules in every market they operate in? Sure. And people are still going to have that option, right? But you can also go buy it from whatever, Ron Tonkin Ford in Portland, Oregon, and you can go buy it from Ron and understand that he's going to do things that way because he's built to be successful in that local market.
Yeah.
And you can also go buy it from like a dude on Craigslist. And everyone's driving away, man. It's like, I don't get the big, I think it's going to be fun. I really do. We're going to adjust. There's going to be some tears. There's going to be some pain. There's going to be some struggles and some conversations, but we're going to figure it out, boys and girls. I'm very confident.
We will. You're exactly right. And I think, we are, like I said, when we started, we're 1 week in from this news, right? And these decisions, and there's a lot of opinions on it, right? And whatnot. But we told our team on Tuesday, right? And we said almost verbatim, we are going to make sure that you are absolutely the most trained, right? We're going to make sure that you have the tools to do your job and that you offer an incredible level of service, whether it's a buyer or a seller, doesn't really matter. It will fall within those parameters because some of them we don't know, right? Some of them we just don't know yet. We can suspect how it's going to flow, but we're going to use the time now to almost move forward as if it's July 1st today, right? And what are the things that we need to be working on? Where are our gaps, right? Hey, this is really awkward and feels weird. We need to prep them and train them, and so that way it's just second nature conversation, right? To where any buyer is going to be like, yeah, I want you representing me, and I'll pay for it, even if we can't get it to get paid for, right? Things like that, right? Mm-hmm. We want to be in that position versus the other position where you show 30, 40 houses, they don't buy anything, and then they stumble across something and they buy it, and you never had an agreement in place, and you lost all that time, energy, and money, right? And that has happened to us over the years, even with an agreement or not.
I mean, if you've been in the business long enough, it's something similar that has happened to you, or you've had that buyer where you've looked every weekend for 9 months, and then they moved back home or rented an apartment or whatever they did. And, like I said, it happens all the time, guys. And it
happens all the time. So, this could be a way to shorten that process. This could be a way to secure some income at least. This also could be a way to weed out people that are not serious, right? Just the not serious people. I mean, we're still historically low on inventory in any market in the country today, right? Historically low. There's so many more buyers than there are sellers. So we need to kind of think through that. It's nothing to do with that maybe as a person, but maybe as you're not ready today. You're just not ready, right? Because if you were, right? He or she, they might be moving mountains to get through all this stuff so that they're packaged correctly when we submit an offer. There's a lot of those things that we are going
Yeah.
to work through.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of unknowns. I think
Yeah,
that there's a lot of people saying very confidently that this is going to cause a ABC reduction in home values. I mean, I think it's going to be very market specific. I mean, at the end of the day, we still have largely nationwide an inventory issue, right?
right,
I know that builders are experiencing a pretty good increase in their stock values. I really hope they take that as a sign to build more stuff because that's great for everybody, you know. But I mean, I personally would be surprised if every home was worth 2.5 to 3% less on July 16th than it is today. I just doubt it, right? Like, so I don't know that the removal of marketability of buyer agent commissions is going to have a, a straight line reduction in cost to buyers, as a for instance, right?
right, right,
Because again, like we've said before, just the removal of the ability to market it doesn't remove whether or not it's going to be there at the end of any
right,
particular transaction, right?
right.
And at the end of the day, home stuff's worth what someone will pay for it, right? Like,
Yeah,
I I've never again, I haven't been doing this forever. I've been doing this for a pretty long time.
right,
I've never had a seller like tack on a given percentage to what they thought their home value was worth based upon whatever the commission that we agreed upon was going to be. They thought their home was worth a certain figure based upon comparative analysis and whatever whatever things they may have added to their home,
right,
the status of it and things like that, right? Those were the factors,
right,
and obviously
right,
while they had to budget in those examples whatever
right,
our agreed upon commission was.
right,
I don't know that they like I don't know that if they could back that out, they would. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
right.
I think they're just gonna, list their home for whatever they think the value is and take the highest and best offer, like has always been the case.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I guess time will tell. Like no
Time
one's
will
got a crystal
tell, right?
ball. No one's got a crystal ball. It's one of those things where if you ask three economists what it's gonna look like next year, you're gonna have, three different answers. I don't know if anyone will be right. But we shall see, man. It's a new world out there. I'm excited for the opportunity to conduct business in the best way possible for my individual clients. And I think there's going to
Yeah,
be more of a focus on that, right? I think that,
yeah,
how I plan to do it, and again, I don't have every answer, is to focus even more on each individual client's experience and make sure that I'm providing them with the services that they individually need
right,
at a cost that we can both agree upon, right?
right,
And I think if we look at it that way and frame it that way, largely it's going to be the same as it always has been as far as how we should approach it as agents. But some clients may just want a different level of service than we assume they do. There's been a
right,
lot of assumptions, right?
right,
I mean, shame on me. Like, I literally every single deal I've ever done in my entire life has been a buyer's or a seller's agency. I've never I just always assumed that's what people wanted was the maximum level of service. Maybe they wanted something different. Maybe that's not what
right,
they needed for that individual offer, right?
right,
And that's just
right,
how I've had the conversation, and they've always accepted it. I
right,
never forced anyone to do anything, but
right,
maybe now that they are considering their options a little further, maybe they will ask me, and I need to have answers for what different level of service, what they
right.
want, what they don't want.
Well, and I think we will flush that out. I think I'm really proud of our team, not only in Colorado but in Missouri. We're really embracing, this. Yeah, it's kind of a. I think we had our little bit of a boohoo on that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I think come Monday we were like, okay, enough of that. We need to start thinking forward and thinking differently, right? And we'll continue to do that, right? We believe that our agents are our clients, right? And we need to provide them value and help feed them and make them successful. But what's interesting, Andrew, is that not only the verdict in October, but the announcement of the NAR proposed settlement last Friday. It's really forced even myself to kind of go back to those skills from 16 years ago.
Mhm.
What were those things that made me successful? And I go back and what you just said, it was about the experience. And they got, whether they're a seller or a buyer, they got what they paid for.
Right.
Absolutely, and more, right? and not all, but a majority of them are still in my world today in some way, shape, or form. Now 16 years later, they've got kids buying their first place, right? Or they're moving and doing all this other stuff. So that's a different. That's been a positive, and to sharpen that saw and to get better, right? And be able to then transfer that to our people as well. So I hope this can be a series. I think we're probably going to have more discussion on this between now and July, but I think as things come, I think this would be good to continue this in our portfolio and our media asset. If you will.
We can talk about. I mean, I've had a lot of agents reach out to me and say like, "Hey, Andrew, I haven't really been able to connect with someone. Like, how would you have this conversation, right?"
Yep.
And because it is different, and you have to have a different conversation with your buyers, and you have to have a different conversation with your sellers, and you have to.
Yep.
And again, and I'll steal something that you said. We inform, they decide, right? So all we can do is inform our clients of the options in front of them, and they can decide what they are comfortable with, right?
Right.
And again, and I think we'll take, I think you're right. I think we'll over the coming weeks, we'll take time. We'll dive into these a little bit further. I
Right.
would like to get, I mean, I don't want to spend an entire year talking about this one subject because there's more important stuff going on in our
Right.
lives in the real estate world than this.
Right.
But I would like to hear maybe like what a lender has to think about this. I would like to see
Yep.
what a title rep has to see, because that's another conversation I've heard out there is, oh, title can do everything. I'm not 100% sure that's true. Like I don't know if a title
Yep.
rep has the authority to fill out the contract to buy and sell.
That's right.
So I'd love to kind of hear what their thoughts are on it.
Yep.
But I think if we can leave you guys with one thing at least, and again, I don't mean this to be like harsh, because I do want to recognize this is impactful for all of us. But I just would like to encourage you guys to accept this as an opportunity to grow and develop and find a way to do this, right? This is not a thing that happened to any of us, right? Especially here in Colorado, right? This is maybe a perspective change, right? Because all the things that we are being asked to do in states that have a buyer's agency agreement is things we already should have been doing, right? And we already were doing largely. I really do.
It already existed.
So, but now, and I don't think it's fair for us to have the mindset of, oh, that was always an option, but the public wasn't aware of it. I don't think that's a fair way to view it, right? So I think it's okay to take some ownership of it. It's like, hey, while this was an option, if 100% of my clients chose option A, there has to be at least a reasonable chance that I was not fully explaining options B, C, and D.
Right.
Because I assume someone somewhere would have chosen something else, right? You know what I'm saying? So look as an opportunity to grow, right? There are plenty of goods that come out of this. You talked about it, right? Maybe not every client needs a full buyer's or seller's agency agreement. Some clients need transaction brokerage relationships. Some clients need a customer-based relationship that offers a limited number of services because they're not going to use the full gambit, right? Like, how many of us have been shopping for an apartment and have asked, oh, I'm never going to use the gym. Why do I have to pay? Can I get a discount on my rent, or can I get a discount on the HOA fee? Well, no, you can't, right? So I think we're gonna have maybe some options as agents that are a little bit more a la carte than just kind of the all in. Like, I tell you what, man, like I love my clients dearly, and but if you were a customer client that I'm just kind of writing a contract for you, I'm not going to drive up to Evergreen for an hour and dig out a 4-foot snowbank so that the buyer clients can get to your driveway, like I did for my other clients yesterday, right?
Right.
Like that, and that to me,
that's a great example.
That's not something they expected or something they asked for, but it's something I delivered because of our relationship and what we have, not only on paper, but what we have kind of through over the last several years, right? But if you're a client that says like, Andrew, hey man, I go tour my own homes, all I need to do is do the contract for me, write it up, and you're done. Well, yeah, dude, I would do that 10 times out of 10, baby. No problem at all. Do I expect to get, compensated for that? Sure. Does that need to be maybe the same level of compensation I expect for someone that I am going to go drive up and shovel their driveway out? Probably not, man. Like it's just different, So, and I think that's okay. I don't think I broke any laws by saying that. Hashtag not legal.
Not at all.
But
this is now a public conversation at this point.
So again, just it's an opportunity, guys. It's nothing but that. This is good. How can I identify the past success for myself and for my clients through this new world that we're living in?
And be better.
All right,
That's
guys. Well, hey, good to see
awesome.
everyone. Oh, cameo from old Sparkles Wolf here.
Yeah, I got mine was at the groomer today, but you can't see her in this in the Zoom, so she's all shaved. So well,
Yeah, so we'll get back into it. I know we had a little bit of
yeah,
a little bit of a delay in these videos coming out. I think Michael did whip my butt in the Super Bowl bets. But hey, there's more sports to bet on.
yeah, yeah,
We will be beating this more often. We'll dig into this subject, but we will dig into
yeah.
more. I'm not committed to beating this thing to death too much. I think we've said from like a perspective point of view where we think that we are as a team and where we'd like to
Right,
see our industry be.
right.
Yeah, and we'll probably spend a little bit of time talking about some practical, nuts and bolts stuff, but then we're gonna get back into the business, man. There's a lot more to learn, a lot more to develop, and a lot more to grow outside of
Yep.
one proposed settlement. So,
I hear you.
um, good luck out there. It's gonna be a very beautiful weekend here in Colorado. Get out there
Yep.
and show properties. I know our team has a ton of listings going on right now. We have an open house up in Boulder. If you guys are interested, go check out Peter Palmer's Instagram and Facebook. He's got a beautiful, beautiful open house up there in Boulder. If you guys are in the area, really excited. What do you guys got cooking down there in Missouri?
The weather's just now changing, so we're coming out of winter. So a lot of people are coming down for the first time for the season and getting ready. Season will kick off not really this weekend, but next weekend for Easter
Mhm.
weekend. But we're already seeing, traffic flow has been really busy in town. People are getting their boats summarized already. I'm probably about a week out on that.
Nice.
I'm still a little old school on that. Um, but yeah, we've the same thing. The weather's supposed to be really, really nice. It's that perfect where it's not that bitter Midwest winter bone chilling cold, but it's also not that dry heat either. We're kind of right in that middle tier. You still need a light pullover, kind of thing.
Man,
Um,
sweatshirts and shorts is the best weather on the
yes,
face of the earth, man.
very
Yeah,
Oregon, very
yeah,
Oregon.
exactly.
All right, guys, have an amazing weekend, and we'll be in touch as things unfold and continue to provide value. Cool.